Did I tell you I saw Lady Hargrave and all 5 of her daughters last week at Harlington? Such a plain
I never
Poor Mr. Dashwood, carried away so suddenly, woke up one morning with a fever and drew his last gasp within a week. Poor Mr. Dashwood, a very handsome funeral indeed. The serenity of the corpse was most delightful.
Poor Mr. Dashwood, and poor Mrs. Dashwood, in every sense of the word. You know that the widow and daughter were left with almost nothing.
No, truly. But Norman Park is such a large estate.
Were there very many debts in the family?
No, nothing like that. It was a matter of the law.
Did somebody break the law?
No. Mr. Dashwood could not legally bequeath it to the ladies. Nor to his son from a previous marriage, Mr. John Dashwood.
I think I should give them £1,000 apiece to start their new lives.
But wasn't he a rich man already?
Oh, yes. He married into money. But his rich wife, not a very sympathetic creature, moved into Norland the day after the funeral, without a word of notice to the new widow.
My dear John, how can you think of taking £4,000 from the fortune of our dear little boy? What possible claim can the Miss Dashwoods, who are only related to my half-blood, have to so large an amount?
My father's last request was that I provide for them, Fanny.
Your father did not know what he was talking of, I dare say. 10 to 1, he was light-headed at the time. £4,000!
Well, he did not specify any particular amount. Perhaps if the sum were reduced by 1/2.
£2,000? What brother on earth would do so much even for his real sisters?
Well, one would rather do too much than too little. Do you think they may expect more?
Who knows what they may expect?
Well, £2,000 all at once might be spent unwisely, I suppose. Perhaps a yearly sum instead.
People always live forever when there's an annuity to be paid them. To be very honest, my love, I am convinced that your father had no idea of giving them any money. I wager when he told you to provide for them, he meant to help them move their things and send them the occasional presents of fish and game and so forth. My darling, may I risk being perfectly frank?
Always, my angel.
The painful truth is that even on his deathbed, your father was not thinking of us, nor little Harry. He only thought of them. So you owe no particular attention to his wishes, for given his way, he would have left them everything in the world. Remember, my darling, he left them all the best china.
China is a material consideration. It is unnecessary to do more, I think, than help them move comfortably. How liberal and handsome you are, my lamb.
And so the young ladies and their mother are left with nothing. However shall the girls catch a man?
Well, as to that, I understand Mrs. John Dashwood's brother, Mr. Edward Ferris, is to stay with his sister at Norland for a time. He is a bachelor.
And stands to inherit a large fortune from his mother.
Now, if one of the Dashwoods could make a catch of him...
Oh, please do excuse me.
Mr. Ferris.
Miss Dashwood, please pardon me. I do not intend to intrude.
Oh, no. You weren't intruding. Are you,
Yes, I am. Writing a letter, yes. Are you, I see, are you as well?
I am. Writing, yes. Mr. Ferris, pray, do not leave on my account. That is, the light, it is very good here.
Dashwood, I fear I have not had a proper occasion to express to you personally my very sincere condolences on the loss of your father.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Miss Dashwood, I hope that my presence here has not caused you any additional distress in this sad time. My sister, I must confess I was not entirely informed of all the particulars before my visit.
Oh, no. You needn't apologize, Mr. Ferris. In fact, I mistake you. My mother said only yesterday that your presence at Noland is a comfort, and I am very grateful for anything that raises her spirits.
I am pleased to hear that your mother is pleased. That is, might I inquire after Mrs. Dashwood?
It is rather too early to think of any moderation of grief. My father's death is very difficult.
I imagine you must be of great comfort to her.
I attempt to be. I am writing to our cousin, Sir John Middleton. He has a cottage. He may have a cottage available for us in Devonshire. The rent is uncommonly moderate.
I imagine it must be very difficult to leave your home.
Yes. We have been very happy here. Oh dear, I must not smudge this.
Miss Dashwood, please forgive me. I fear I did not mean to upset you.
Mr. Ferris, I cannot use this.
Miss Dashwood, I beg your pardon.
No, it's very kind.
No, this is inexcusable.
No, I must beg
I am
your pardon.
very, very sorry.
Please stop, we're going to smear it.
Fanny, Miss Dashwood was just, she was kind enough to...
Edward, there is ink on your face.
Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought.
Spirit, Edward.
And enterprises of great pith and moment.
Edward, please. Hamlet is not making polite conversation. In this speech, he is all of mankind, all of humankind, railing against the forces that would keep us tame, that prevent us from acting upon our soul's truest impulses. It is a desperate cry against the futility of a life less than entirely lived. You must be driven almost mad by passion, by rage, by love for the frail beauty of life itself.
With this regard, their parents turn away.
Edward, Shakespeare writes in a rhythm which matches precisely the beats of the human heart. If your heart also beats, which I presume it does,
Yes.
then you cannot help but feel the impossible depth of all of Hamlet's text. And thus, the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought.
With this regard, their currents turn away to lose the name of action.
Soft you now, the fair Ophelia.
Marianne.
Soft you now, the fair Ophelia. Nymph in thy orisons, be all my sins remembered.
Oh, Edward.
I'm sorry.
A noble effort. Why would you give him Hamlet to begin, Marianne? Lady Mamma, if one is not to be animated by Hamlet. I suppose we must account for differences of taste.
In truth, you have done me a service. I may now tell my mother in all seriousness that I have no talent for public speaking.
Will she take such a defeat willingly, Edward? Your sister is always telling us you are destined to be a very great orator.
My life's work seems to be to convince both Fanny and my mother that I am unsuited for public scrutiny.
Then how will your fame be established? For famous you must be to satisfy them.
I cannot be forced into greatness, thank heavens.
You have no ambition.
My ambition is to be happy. But I fear it must be in my own way. Wealth and fame would not make me so.
Strange that it would. Was wealth or fame to do with being happy?
Wealth has much to do with it.
Eleanor, for shame.
Money determines more than you might wish, Marianne.
Edward, you promised we would see Fancy's puppies before dinner.
I did. Shall we make a party of it?
I have seen them already. It must be a quick visit, Margaret. Please, do get your boots. It's raining. I don't know where they are. It's scarcely raining, Mamma. Let us go ask Betsy if they've been laid aside. What a pity it is, Eleanor, that Edward reads so spiritlessly.
Marianne, you have been hectoring him all afternoon and have only made him more self-conscious. If you would leave him alone for a moment, I'm sure he would read very well indeed.
I was only trying to help. Eleanor, are you truly offended?
Do you really think him spiritless?
I have the highest opinion possible of Edward. I assure you, I think him everything in the world that is worthy and amiable.
Must you always speak so warmly?
Don't you agree?
I think that Edward is very sensible. His mind is excellent, and if he's not always a brilliant orator, it's only his shyness that impedes him.
Indeed.
He may sometimes appear awkward, but I think that's only because he strives so earnestly to never hurt any living creature by careless thought or action.
Yes.
I grant you, perhaps he's not fashionable.
No.
Perhaps he's not even widely considered handsome. But once you notice his eyes, which are uncommonly good, and consider the general sweetness of his expression, well, I find him very handsome indeed. But what say you, Marianne?
I swear that when you shall tell me to love him as a brother, I shall think him perfect indeed.
Marianne, I do not deny that I think very highly of Edward, that I greatly esteem him, that I like him.
Esteem him, like him, cold-hearted Eleanor!
Excuse me for speaking in so quiet a way of my feelings. Believe them to be stronger than I have declared. But I am not sure that Edward feels anything for me beyond friendship.
Eleanor?
He may have a kind of a preference. There are other points to be considered, Marianne. He is dependent on his mother for a living and must obey her wishes in all things. Edward would face many obstacles if he wished to marry a woman with no fortune.
Miss Dashwood, can I say it?
You must not be diffident, Eleanor. Edward is obviously desperately in love with you, and no material obstacle can stand in the way of love for long. That means it's only a matter of time. Before he binds his soul to yours forever.
Where do you pick up these phrases?
Stop it.
You are a goose. Stop it. We must go in for dinner.
There was a brown one, and a white one, and a white one with a brown spot on his nose. Oh, they were all so cute. Do you think, Mamma, I might have one as my own particular pet? She could sleep in the barn.
We shall see, my dear. I do not know how much room we shall have in the new house.
How fortunate, ma'am, that you're able to find lodging so soon. We are very sorry to lose you, of course.
When exactly are you planning to leave?
I might have immediate possession of the cottage, though I imagine it will be some months before we can put all the particulars to rights.
I do not think it is right that you are moving so far away.
Well, not too far for a visit. Fanny, you and John are always welcome. And Edward, I hope you will come and stay with us very soon.
I will certainly visit soon.
But not too soon, Edward. You would not want to cut short your visit here, and you have so many other obligations. You know Maman is expecting you next month when Miss Morton is visiting.
I'm not even acquainted with Miss Morton, Fanny. I'm sure that I can manage both.
Edward, do not make promises that you cannot keep. My brother, you know, is soft-hearted and always wishes to please everybody at every time. But we must not allow him to become too distracted. We have such great expectations for him. There is truly no limit to what Edward may accomplish, whether it be in the law, the army, or the government.
Yeah.
You know, it is very burdensome to have such very, very high potential as our Edward does. And I confess, it does make me fear for him.
Well, what do you mean, my love?
Why, my poor brother is a fox, and hallooning all around him are hunters and hounds. Ow! Ow!
A fox, Fanny?
I am sorry, am I being very abstract? He is a target, my love. He is prey. Opportunists are always circling, ready to pounce. An eligible man of my brother's station will always attract, for example, upwardly minded young ladies. There is no predator so fierce, no creature so shameless as an unmarried woman in the pursuit of a wealthy man. It is a sad reflection of our libertine age, but I assure you, such fortune hunters are all too common. And I do use that term broadly.
Fanny.
Why? I'm merely making conversation.
I misspoke earlier. We shall remove ourselves from this house within the week, no matter the expense. I've lost my appetite. Girls, come.
Ow! Ow!
Miss Dashwood. I just wanted to say, very safe travels to your new home.
It's so small, Margaret. It will fit all of us comfortably, and Thomas and Betsy. We are really very fortunate, dear.
Where shall I put my telescope?
Next to my pianoforte, you may spy on the neighbours.
Marianne.
You may not spy on the neighbours.
It is rather small, but I imagine it will be soon. We may have plenty of money, and then we may think about building.
Hello! This is Dashwood. Mother-in-law, Mrs. Jennings.
It's so brilliant to meet your relation. It's easy, it's not together. They get more excited. Hush, hush.
Sir John, may I present my daughter, Mrs. Eleanor, Marianne, and
I must apologize to you, Miss Eleanor and Miss Marianne, for I was unable to get any eligible young bachelors here today. Only our particular friend, little Brandon. But he is neither very young nor very gay, I'm afraid. Brandon, old boy, come, feast your eyes on Miss Eleanor and Miss Marianne Dashwood. Brandon. Aren't they the most charming girls in the world? To dinner, to dinner. I only hope you will not find it all so very dull.
Miss Margaret, surely you can tell us the name of the young gentleman who is Miss Eleanor's particular favourite in Sussex?
I must not tell. May I, Eleanor?
Margaret, you remember that whatever conjectures you may have, you have no right to repeat them.
I never had any conjectures about it, Marianne. It was you who told me of it in the first place.
Pray, Miss Margaret, let us know all about it. What is the gentleman's name?
I must not tell, Mum. But I know who it is, and I know where he is, too.
Oh, we can guess where he is. In Norland, to be sure. He is the curate of the parish, I dare say.
Well, he is of no profession at all.
Margaret, you know that this is all your own invention, and that there is no such person in existence.
Well, then he is very lately dead, Marianne, for I am sure there was such a man once. And his name begins with an F.
F, eh?
F, eh?
Oh, now, here we go.
It has rained very hard recently. It has rained every day for the last fortnight, I believe. You don't find the weather unusually inclement of late, ma'am?
Rain. Shocking. Rain.
Yes, it's been a very wet spring.
Margaret, would you be so good as to join me at the pianoforte?
Why?
Oh, Miss Marianne, do you play?
Please, do excuse my sister's enthusiasm.
Oh, no. Pound away, by all means. Pound away.
Yes, we are all prepared to be charmed.
Very fond of music.
Yes, dear.
Oh, Colonel Brandon is very much in love with Miss Marianne Dashwood. I rather suspected it to be so on the first evening they met, from his listening to her while she sang, and on the second visit, when he listened to her sing again. It is an excellent match, for he is rich and she is handsome, and I'm sure he need not wait any longer.
Colonel Brandon is a very eligible bachelor.
Well, a bit long in the tooth. Why, my Cassandra sent a cap at him, and that was 10 years ago.
Oh, and that great big property he inherited. Oh, I cannot think of it, but I'm breathless.
Such a sober man. A young woman's touch would liven him up.
A young, pretty woman. Either breathe life into him or kill him within a fortnight.
A match, a perfect match! I'll find a good husband for every decent girl in the county, mark my words.
Colonel Brandon is nearly old enough to be my father, and if he was ever animated enough to be in love, has long outlived the sensation. What is a man to be safe from such wit if age and infirmity do not protect him?
Infirmity? Do you call Colonel Brandon infirm?
Yesterday he spoke of his flannel waistcoat.
And?
A flannel waistcoat for his aching joints. It's the commonest signifier of declining life.
My dearest child, if you estimate the Colonel thus, you must be in continual terror of my decay. It must seem a miracle to you that I still live.
Mamma, you are not doing me justice. I know that Colonel Brandon is not in any danger of immediate expiration. He may live 20 years longer, but a man of his age should have nothing to do with matrimony.
Perhaps a man of his age and a lady of your age should have nothing to do with matrimony together. But if there was a woman who was single at 30, I'm sure no one would object to the Colonel marrying her.
A woman of 30? can never hope to feel or inspire affection again. If her fortune is small, I suppose she may bring herself to be a nurse for the sake of being a wife.
Must you doom Colonel Brandon to a slow decline because he happened to complain of an ache in his shoulder? If he had been in a violent fever, you would not despise him half so much. Confess, Marianne, is there not something thrilling to you in the flushed cheek, hollowed eye, and quick pulse of a fever?
Ma'am! Lord Middleton's here to ask if you have any letters to post.
Hello!
I will take them. Margaret, will you go and get your boots on?
We're not still going for a walk, are we? It's going to rain.
It is not going to rain. Now go and get your boots on, please.
Oh, boots, boots, boots.
Mamma, I have had an alarm on the subject of sickness, which I must share with you. I am sure that Edward Ferrars is not well.
Oh?
We have been here nearly a fortnight, and he's not yet come. What else but grave illness could be keeping him away?
Does Eleanor expect him?
She must.
She has said nothing to me.
It's all so strange. Do you know, I purposely let them alone together twice on our last morning at Nolan. And both times he most unaccountably followed me out of the room.
What?
Are you still walking? It looks as though it's going to rain.
Marianne!
It is not going to rain. The day will be everlastingly fair.
Now come along.
A very wet spring. We should tell Betsy to put on tea. They will be so through.
Eleanor! Marianne fell and hurt her ankle, and a gentleman scooped her right up.
Margaret, what on earth?
Marianne's preserver! Marianne's preserver!
Please forgive my intrusion, ma'am. The lady took a tumble and was not able to stand.
Margaret's running to tell Betsy what has happened.
Marianne, dearest, are you in much pain?
Only a wrenched ankle, I think.
Oh, thank heavens! Thank heavens you were there. Sir, would you sit and take some tea?
Thank you, but I am dirty and wet and don't want to spoil your furniture.
Might I ask to whom we are so obliged?
My name is John Willoughby. Will you allow me the honor, ma'am, of calling tomorrow to inquire after Miss...
Dashwood is our name. I am Mrs. Dashwood. This is Eleanor. And Margaret. And
Miss Marianne Dashwood.
Mr. Willoughby, will you not stay and wait for the rain to clear?
Thank you very much, but my pointers are outside. A little more water will not melt me. Until tomorrow.
Marianne's gallant preserver!
My goodness. Is that so? Wonderful.
And then Mamma asked if he would stay for tea, but he said he would not because he was muddy and dirty. But he said he would call again today.
So, John, do you know of a gentleman by the name of Willoughby?
Willoughby? What, is he in town? Well, he is out here every spring. I must have him to dinner on Thursday.
And what sort of a young man is he?
Good a man as ever lived, but not a bolder rider in all of England.
And where is his residence?
Mr. Willoughby has no property of his own in the county. He resides here only while staying with his rich old cousin, Mrs. Smith at Allenham Court. He is to inherit the estate and all of her fortune eventually.
Oh.
He would be very well worth catching, Miss Dashwood. And if I were you, I would not give him up so easily to my younger sister. Miss Marianne cannot expect to have all the men to herself. Brandon will be jealous if she does not have a care.
My daughters, Sir John, were not brought up to catch gentlemen. I am glad to hear, however, that he is a respectable young man.
Of course he is respectable, Mama.
Aye, I see how it is. You will set your cap at him now, and you'll never think again on poor Brandon. How can he compete with all this tumbling about and spraining of ankles?
Cowper.
Yes, I dare say Scott or Pope is a more serious-minded answer, but Cowper is my favorite poet of our time.
Cowper may indeed be the greatest poet of any time. What is your favorite poem, Mr. Willoughby? Pray tell. Mine must be Hope.
I think very
Oh, see me sworn to serve thee in command, a painter's skill into a poet's hand.
That while I, trembling, trace a work divine, fancy may stand aloof to the design, and light and shade, and every stroke be thine.
Mr. Willoughby, will you join us for dinner?
Thank you, but I beg your pardon, I must dine with my cousins at Allenham tonight. I had no idea it was so late. May I call again tomorrow?
Oh, by all means.
Until tomorrow.
Well, Marianne, no one can ever accuse you of being too reserved.
You're right, Eleanor. I have been too much at ease. Too happy. Too frank. I have been open and sincere when I ought to have been dull and spiritless. I suppose you think I should have talked solely of the weather and of the roads and only spoken once every 10 minutes, or better yet, never spoken at all.
My love, she was only teasing. Eleanor, surely we would never wish to check on Marianne's conversations with her new friend.
A love match indeed.
I hear Mr. Willoughby visits the Dashwoods every day.
Scooping her up in the driving rain.
I'm a horde of gypsies and you'd have a penny novel.
Oh, married within a month, mark my words.
He has no money to marry. It depends entirely on that old cousin.
Oh, but when he does inherit, they will be wealthy indeed, wealthy and handsome. What more could one wish?
Look at them. No eyes for anyone else in the world.
This is indeed the season of my happiness.
But what of poor Colonel Brandon?
Colonel Brandon? Colonel Brandon and his wet spring.
Colonel Brandon is the sort of man that everybody speaks well of, but nobody cares about.
And why should you dislike him?
Why should you like him?
He is very civil. He has seen a great deal of the world and always answers my inquiries with good breeding and good nature.
That is to say that he has told you that in the East Indies the climate is hot and mosquitoes are troublesome.
You are both unfair to him, and it is not witty in either of you.
Oh, in defense of your protege, Miss Dashwood, you can even be saucy.
My protege, as you call him, is a sensible man, and sense will always have attractions for me. Yes, Marianne, even in a man over 40.
Oh, he is respectable, all right. As respectable as a statue or a monument, our terrible, stiff, perfectly inhuman colonel. I'm amazed he can still bend and voice.
Well, I have always found him to be a perfect gentleman.
But not me.
Eleanor?
No, I fear she is only too right. Miss Dashwood, forgive me. In utter self-reproach, I cast myself at your feet to once again bask in the light of your sweet approbation. I surrender my case entirely. I, John Willoughby, declare that Colonel Brandon's character is completely and entirely irreproachable. And yet somehow I dislike him more than ever. Speak of the devil.
Ugh, you're never safe from him.
You have poor timing, Brandon. I was just about to take Marianne to the greenhouse. There are some very interesting orchids there.
Orchids? Yes, we must go and look at the orchids. I do so adore an orchid. Please, Do excuse us, Colonel.
Your sister is full of life.
She is certainly energetic. Someday her disposition will settle, I hope.
I'm sorry to think of her ever changing.
I cannot agree with you there. Marianne's ideals are all very romantic, but they tend to discard propriety entirely. She would benefit from a more mature understanding of certain realities.
Do not desire it too much. I once knew a lady who resembled your sister, and her introduction into what you might call realities was quite unfortunate. I will not trouble you with the news. Pardon me, have you dropped this?
Oh, yes.
Shall I have it laundered?
No! No, thank you.
I beg your pardon, but it is covered with ink.
Please do excuse us for a moment, Colonel. May I steal my sister's attention? I have the most wonderful news! Willoughby has given me a horse!
A horse?
Yes, one which has been bred exactly to carry a woman who is sending his groom forth immediately.
Marianne, you cannot accept such a present.
Why not? Eleanor, we shall share its use.
A horse from a strange man.
What strange man? We're speaking of Willoughby.
And he is very little known to you.
I may not have been acquainted with Willoughby for long, Eleanor, but I know him much better than I know any other creature in the world. Well, except you, and Mamma, of course.
Marianne, let us not touch on the impropriety for a moment. We cannot afford to keep a horse.
Surely we could find the money.
We have enough to do just to keep ourselves respectable.
There must be some way.
We must go in for dinner.
I must speak to you about your kind offer.
Marianne. Well, Queen Mab is still yours, no doubt. I shall keep her until you can claim her for your more lasting home.
What's the matter with Brandon?
He left my dinner table.
No bad news, Colonel, I hope.
None at all, ma'am.
But what was that letter?
Merely a letter of business.
Then how did it discompose you so? Come, let us hear the truth of it. Oh, I know who it is from. And I hope she is well.
Whom do you mean, ma'am?
Oh, you know who.
I am very sorry to have received this tonight, ma'am. I'm afraid it requires my immediate attendance.
In town?
Yes, in town. And I'm afraid that I must break up the party. And I do not mean to, but I must depart this moment.
Tonight? Absurd! Go tomorrow instead.
I regret I cannot.
There are some people who cannot bear a party of pleasure. I would lay down 50 guineas that Brandon invented this trick to get out of our little gathering.
I have no doubt of it.
It is all very unorthodox.
Well, when will you come back again?
I dare not say.
Oh,
The horses are ready, sir.
You would better change your mind.
It is not within my power. Miss Dashwood, might I see you and your sisters in London this winter?
I'm afraid not.
Then we must be parted for longer than I might wish. Miss Marianne.
Colonel, before you go, do let us know what you are going about.
Good evening, ma'am.
How provoking.
I can guess what his business is. It is about Miss Williams, I am sure.
And who is Miss Williams?
A relation of the Colonel's, my dear. A very near relation. I will not say how near for fear of shocking you. She is his natural daughter. And as like him as she can stare. It was the great scandal of the county 15-odd years ago. The mother died, I understand, although we never could get all of the details. He is very fond of the little love child. I dare say he will leave her all his fortune.
A love child from prim and proper Brandon. What a first-rate hypocrite.
Any further intelligence from Brandon?
No. It must be something he's very ashamed of.
Well, despite our reduced numbers, we must make ourselves merry.
Yes, yes, indeed.
What do you say to a ramble after dinner?
Oh,
A short, moonlit drive about the country?
ask Miss Marianne and Mr. Willoughby about drives in the country.
Man.
I have found you out in spite of all your tricks. This morning, when we all went driving and you two sped away out of sight, I made my woman inquire of your groom, sir, and I know where you spent the morning.
Yes, out in my carriage.
Yes, yes, Mr. Impudence. And I know where you went in that carriage. I hope you like your new home, Miss Marianne, and I look forward to visiting you at Allenham.
A good trick on us. Willoughby, tell me, have you still got that fine mare?
Yes, but she is not for sale.
Lady,
Marianne, did you really visit Allenham with Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
With no companion other than Mr. Willoughby?
We did not do anything wrong, Eleanor. Mr. Willoughby has a perfect right to shoot that estate. It will all one day belong to him.
Even if it would one day all belong to you, Marianne, you would not be justified in what you have done.
Eleanor,
Why didn't you tell me?
why don't you talk to me about Edward?
There's nothing to tell.
The same is true for me. There was nothing to tell, really, Eleanor. We just took a little stroll. Perhaps it was rather ill-judged of me to go without a chaperone or formal invitation, but Willoughby wanted so particularly to show me privately. There's the sweetest little garden there, and a sitting room just so...
No news of an engagement yet.
I cannot think why. He uses her Christian name quite openly.
Such extraordinary silence.
An establishment may not be within his power until he inherits.
he certainly lives expensively enough.
All fashion and no fortune.
But no announcement of their attachment yet.
Why such secrecy?
Why such secrecy?
Why such secrecy?
I have such a secret to tell you both about Marianne. I am sure she and Mr. Willoughby will be married very soon.
You have said that almost every day since they've met, Margaret.
Yes, well, for now I am sure they will be married. For he has a lock of her hair.
How do you know?
I know many things, Eleanor.
Margaret.
Oh, I saw him take it. Last night after tea, when you and Mamma went out of the room, they were whispering together, and he took up her scissors and he cut a lock of her hair, and he kissed it, and he put it in his pocketbook, and today she asked to stay home alone, and I am sure he must be visiting with her right now.
Margaret.
It is Mr. Willoughby's curricle. I told you, he did visit her.
Marianne?
Mr. Willoughby,
Good day.
is anything amiss?
Yes, there's been a very heavy disappointment. I'm afraid I'm unable to picnic with you today.
Well, perhaps tomorrow then.
Mrs. Smith has commanded a poor dependent cousin to conduct some business in London right away, and I have received my marching orders, and I must leave immediately.
Her business will not keep you from us for long, I hope.
You are very kind, but Mrs. Smith will not have me more than once a year.
And Is Allenham the only house in the neighborhood in which you are welcome? For shame, Willoughby, do you need a formal invitation to visit us here?
You are too good. My engagements at present are of such a nature. It is folly to linger. I will not torment myself by remaining here any longer.
Margaret, will you go tell Betsy that Marianne won't be coming down for dinner? Please, dear. Do you think that they have quarreled?
Oh, Eleanor, why do you always love to think the worst?
I don't, but what else could have happened?
Why, it's perfectly obvious. I can account for everything.
Can you?
Yes! Mrs. Smith must have invented this business in London as an excuse to send Willoughby away. Word has finally reached her of the attachment between Willoughby and Marianne, and she disapproves, strives to separate them. Because he is dependent on her, he dares not confess to her yet that they are already engaged, and he must obey her wishes for a time. That is why he cannot predict when he will return. What say you, Eleanor?
Nothing. You may be right, Mamma.
Your countenance suggests otherwise. What are your conjectures?
Mamma, I do not mean to cast suspicion, but while it indeed may be prudent for them to conceal their engagement from Mrs. Smith, why do they conceal it from us?
His entire behavior to Marianne declares that he considers her to be his future wife.
My doubts may soon be done away. If they write to each other, they are obviously engaged.
A mighty concession indeed, ungracious girl. If you were to see them at the altar, would you then admit that they were going to be married?
Perhaps we should ask Marianne directly if she is engaged.
You may do as you like. I would do no such thing. I would not ask that question for the world. I would find that most ungenerous. Marianne shall tell me what she will, when she will, and however she sees fit.
I have told Betsy she wants to know if she should bring Marianne's dinner up.
Let us go practice your French, dear.
No one tells me anything.
Marianne, are you going for a walk? Shall I join you?
Where would you like to go?
On the downs?
I'm sorry, Eleanor. I meant to go on the lanes.
Marianne, please. For weeks you've avoided everybody. Will you take the air with me once? The sky is very beautiful today. We never finished reading Marchment, Marianne. Perhaps we could put it aside until Willoughby rejoins us, although it may be many months before that happens.
Months, no. Not many weeks.
Indeed. Marianne,
Eleanor, who is that?
is it Colonel Brandon?
No.
Is it Willoughby?
No. No, look! Eleanor, look! Look! Hello! Hello, yes, it is us! Hello!
Mr. Ferris!
Miss Marianne! Miss Dashwood!
Good Lord, what's taking you so long?
Yes, hello. Hello. I'm very pleased to see you both.
Indeed, it is almost the greatest happiness imaginable. Having come directly from Northern.
No, I've been in Devonshire for tonight and now come purposely to visit you.
You have been in the county for a fortnight and are only now just visiting us.
I've been visiting some friends near Plymouth.
Well, come. Welcome. Come, you must walk back with us. I'll be so happy to finally see you. Or perhaps I should just run along ahead and let her know that you're coming.
Marianne, wait! Perhaps we should all just walk together.
Sir John, Mrs. Jennings, may I present Mr. Edward Ferris?
Oh, Mr. Ferris!
Mr. Ferris, eh?
What an unspeakable pleasure to meet you, Mr. Ferris.
Mr. Ferris.
Would anyone care for some tea?
I would, certainly.
Ferris.
I have never seen you wear a ring before, Edward. Is it new?
Yes, no. It is old, that is, but new to me. Recent. Have I never worn it before? Yes.
Mr. Ferris.
Oh, long F, sir, long F!
Mr. Ferris. We must have you come to dinner with us tomorrow night, for we shall be quite alone. And then you must come again the following day, for we shall be a large party.
Yes, and perhaps we may raise a dance in the next week. For how long shall we have you in our corner of England, Mr. Ferris? We are quite bereft of eligible young bachelors here. For as long as you remain a bachelor, that is.
I'm afraid I am only staying tonight, ma'am.
Oh,
A lot of riding for such a short visit.
only for tonight, Edward.
Oh, I see. I suppose you only came on some particular errand.
Oh, I see.
I was in the county, ma'am.
Well, whatever your reason, we must have you stay longer now.
Yes, young man, do not be a ninny. Stay!
Stay.
Stay!
Edward, you are more than welcome.
Stay.
Stay.
I am afraid I must attend my mother.
Truly, Mr. Ferris, such a very short visit.
Why come at all?
Really, Edward, it is too ridiculous. You must stay.
I'm sorry beyond what I can say, but I must go to my mother.
Well, Edward, what are Mrs. Ferris's aims for you at present?
Much the same. I'm to rise high in the world, but I must have no profession. That would be too common. Given the choice, I should like to find employment in the church, but it is not smart enough for my family. So my own nicety and the nicety of my relations turned me into what I am. An idle, helpless being.
Oh, come now, Edward, such melancholy. Your mother will give you in time the financial independence you are so anxious for. How much good may not a few months do?
I think that I may defy many months to produce any good to me. What is a man? If his chief good, and market of his time, be but to sleep and feed. A beast. No more. That's from Hamlet, Marianne. But perhaps you did not recognize it, because my delivery is so improved. I am sorry if I am very saucy.
I love to be reminded of the past, Edward, and you will never offend me by talking of it.
And do you feel so strongly about Hamlet's beating heart as you once did?
At my time of life, opinions are now fixed. It is unlikely that I shall ever change them.
Marianne is as steadfast as ever.
No, she's only grown a little more grave.
Nay, Edward, you need not reproach me. You are not very gay yourself.
No, suppose not.
But worse, you are reserved.
Reserved?
Yes, very.
What do you mean?
Marianne thinks everyone reserved who's not quite so open as she is. And here we are at last.
adieu. Do you know when you may return?
I cannot say.
Please do come again soon, Edward, please.
Miss Dashwood.
Hello, Miss Dashwood!
Hello! Oh, where is Miss Marianne? Has she run away because we are come?
He's out walking.
Well, keep your eyes over this way, Miss Dashwood, for I have brought you some strangers. Miss Anne and Lucy Steele, who are to stay with us for a time at the park.
Do you like them?
Gosh, they will hear you.
I met them on a morning's excursion to Exeter and discovered them to be my relations. Yes, the cousins of my cousin Mildred's own Mr. John. Nay, not you, sir, but shorter and fuller man, if you please. Very gouty, poor fellow, and never comfortable in the least bit of damp. Where was I?
Your relations, ma'am.
Yes, can you imagine? Naturally, we invited them to stay with us directly. I dare say you can see the resemblance.
They are the most charming girls in the world. You must come for a visit. Oh, you can't think how you will like them.
Come. You must come. Come, my dears. Come inside. You're the only one, except you yourself, of course. Yes, sit right here. Please, sit. And shout to me.
Wonderful, dear. Beautiful. Wonderful. Chat, it's going to be wonderful.
What a lovely room this is. So very well appointed.
Indeed.
How? Do you like Devonshire, Miss Dashwood? I suppose you were very sorry to leave Sussex in that big fine house after your father died and you lost all your money.
We were very sad to leave Norland.
Excuse me.
And did you have a great many smart beaux there? There may be a vast many smart beaux in Exeter, I'm sure, but Lord knows what there might be about Norland. And perhaps the Miss Dashwoods don't care about beaux. You might find it dull and a life be without. For my part, I think they are vastly agreeable, provided they dress smart and behave civil. I can't bear it when they're dirty or nasty. Now, there's Mr. Rose in Exeter, a clerk for Mr. Simpson. If you do see him but of a morning, he is not fit to be seen. I suppose your brother, Miss Dashwood, was quite a beau before he was married, as he was so rich. And Sir John tells us that Miss Marianne has a special admirer who is very handsome, and I hope you will have as good a luck yourself soon. But perhaps you have a gentleman friend already.
His name is Ferris, but pray do not tell it, for it is a great secret.
Mr. Ferris? Mr. Ferris is the happy man? Your sister-in-law's brother, Miss Dashwood? Why, we know him very, very well.
We have met Mr. Ferris once or twice at our uncle's, but we hardly know him well.
Well, I shall say no more, not for all the money in the world. I do believe I shall see if Miss Marianne knows any arias. I am passionately fond of an aria.
Miss Dashwood, please, pardon me, but I wonder if I may ask you something rather odd. Pray, do you happen to be closely acquainted with your sister-in-law's mother, Mrs. Ferris?
No, not at all.
Truly? Oh, I suppose she would have visited Norland sometimes.
No, I'm afraid not.
You must wonder why I asked. I do wish I could tell you, but I would not want you to think me impertinent. Oh, I couldn't bear for you to think me impertinent. I would rather anything in the world than be thought impertinent by a person like you.
I assure you.
And I do wish so much that I could tell you my reasons, and I would be very glad for your advice in a very trying matter, but I do not wish to trouble you. I am sorry that you do not happen to know Mrs. Ferris.
I am sorry that I do not. But I confess, I was not aware that you were at all connected with that family.
Forgive me, it was an odd question. Do not think of it any more.
Tea?
Miss Dashwood, can I trust you?
Pardon?
Would you keep a very great and grave and important secret? If I unburdened myself to you entirely, would you solemnly promise never, ever tell anyone what I'm about to tell you now? Mrs. Ferris is indeed nothing to me at present, but there will come a time when we are very intimately connected indeed.
Good heavens! Have you an understanding with Mr. Robert Ferris?
No, I've never met him in my life, but I am engaged to his eldest brother. I dare say he never mentioned it to you or your family. It is a great secret, for I have no fortune, and we fear his mother will take away all of his inheritance if he chooses to marry a girl with no money.
I beg your pardon, but there must be some mistake. We cannot mean the same Mr. Edward Ferris.
I assure you, I am not mistaken by the name of the man on whom all my happiness depends. Mr. Edward
Mr. Edward Ferris.
We can mean no other.
May I ask if your engagement is of long standing?
We have been engaged these 4 years.
4 years?
Oh yes, but we have known each other for far longer. He was a pupil for many years of my uncle, Mr. Pratt, who lives at Longstaple. He visited us there recently, in fact. Oh, I suppose just before he came to visit you here.
You are his friends in Plymouth.
I am. Oh dear, did you think Edward sadly out of spirits? Poor man, it does break his heart for us to be separated. I gave him a lock of my hair set in a ring, and that was some comfort, he said, but not equal to us being together. Perhaps you saw the ring when he visited you last? Lucy, what was that song the doctor was asking me to sing last? Pardon my interruption. Miss Dashwood, I hope we can speak of this again soon. It has been such a relief to confide in someone so much older and wiser. Until now, Anne was the only other person I could ask advice of. And I do know my Edward cannot be angry at me for confiding in you. He has told me much about you and your family, and I do know he looks upon you quite as his own sister. Will we be seeing you in London this winter?
No.
Oh, I am sorry for that. We could have spent many happy hours together. I'm going in December with Anne to see some relations, but I'm really going to see my darling Edward. I will, of course, give him your very, very best.
Dashwoods, gather round, gather round. Oh, Miss Marianne, if you prefer, keep paddling away there, but do attend to me closely. I have a wonderful proposal for you, my girls. Each winter, you know, I'm in the habit of removing to a nice stomp in London near Portman Square. But this year, I have been scheming, my little chickens, and I have hit upon it. I am entirely resolved that this go-around, you must both come with me to town as my guests, and keep a stupid old woman hopping.
I do thank you, ma'am. It is a very generous offer, but I'm afraid we cannot leave my mother.
Oh, pooh, I am sure she will not object. On the contrary, she will think me very fit to procure you both a bevy of eligible young London bachelors.
Miss Marianne certainly seems eager enough. Now, Mr. Willoughby is in town, does he not?
One or the other of you I must have. I cannot live poking around by myself. Come, Miss Marianne, let us strike hands upon the bargain. And if Miss Eleanor changes her mind by and by, why, so much the better.
You're so sincerely, thank you, ma'am. I must ask my mother's consent first, I suppose, but I assure you it would be almost the greatest happiness I could ever think of.
That certainly sounds promising.
Oh, we will consult with Mamma, yes, but I think she will decide against it.
It is a wonderful plan! May not I go? Perhaps in a few years, my dear. In a few years, I'll be beyond all improvement.
Mamma, I do not think this is prudent. While Mrs. Jennings has a good heart, her protection can hardly give us consequences in life.
If Eleanor is frightened away by Mrs. Jennings, Mamma does not prevent my accepting her invitation.
What a sudden and miraculous display of enthusiasm for Mrs. Jennings.
I would have you both go. These objections are nonsensical. You will enjoy touring London. And if Eleanor would ever condescend to anticipate enjoyment, she might foresee having a very interesting time. Fanny and John always winter in town. You shall have to visit them. Perhaps, in doing so, you may encounter other members of the Ferris family. Fierce.
I like Mr. Ferris well enough, but that is scarcely a reason to go all the way to London.
Must you always be so cold?
Yeah.
Eleanor, please, just don't you see that going to town may secure both of our happinesses forever? I cannot stand it, Eleanor. I must see Willoughby or I will go mad. Please.
Please promise me that you will behave yourself.
You know what it is?
Marianne, I am writing home tomorrow.
I am not writing to my mother. Has any letter been delivered for me today?
No letter has been left. But this.
For me?
No, ma'am. For my mistress.
You are expecting a letter then?
No.
You have no confidence in me, Marianne.
Nay, Eleanor, this reproach from you, you who confide in no one.
Me? Marianne, I again have nothing to tell.
Our situations are then alike. Neither of us has anything to tell. You, because you do not communicate, and I, because I conceal nothing.
Tick tock, 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 tick tock.
Marianne.
Oh, Eleanor, it is him! It is him! Oh! Oh.
Miss Dashwood, I am pleased to see you in London.
Oh, Colonel! Beg your your pardon. Oh, beg your pardon, I've been on my feet all day. Oh, thank you. Oh, I am monstrous glad to see you. I have brought 2 young ladies with me, you see. You see but one of them here, but there is another, and it is your friend, Miss Marianne. Yes, I thought that would please you. I do not know what you and Mr. Willoughby will do between you about her. It is a fine thing to be young and handsome, or so I think. I never was handsome, but I was young once, or so I seem to remember. Oh, pardon me a moment. I forgot to speak to cook about dinner. One always has a world of little odd things to do while one has been away, and I have had old Cartwright to settle with. Lord, I have been as busy as a bee. Buzz, 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 buzz.
Miss Dashwood, might I congratulate you on the acquisition of a brother?
What do you mean?
Your sister's engagement to Mr. Willoughby.
If she is engaged to Mr. Willoughby, this is the first time I have heard of it.
Their marriage is universally talked of.
By whom?
By some of whom you know nothing, and others with whom you are well acquainted. Is it true, Miss Dashwood?
Though they have never told me of their terms, of their mutual affection, I have no doubt. And I am not surprised to hear of their engagement.
And to your sister, I wish all imaginable happiness. Sir Willoughby, that he might endeavor to deserve her.
Colonel, do you prefer boiled fowls or veal cutlets? Colonel? Honestly, that man! 3 weeks gone by and still no visit from Mr. Willoughby. It must be very teasing to you, Miss Marianne. But at the Fitzgerald's ball there will be many pretty fellows to attend upon you. And I'm sure Willoughby will turn up sharpish when he hears how many gentlemen you dance with tonight.
Pray be composed and do not betray what you feel to everybody.
Eleanor, go to him this moment. Force him to come to me.
All of these people now, please.
Eleanor, I am unwell. I am very unwell.
What do you expect?
from a certain special someone, which I'm sure will be to your liking. Oh, I have never seen a young woman so desperately in love in my life. Pray, when are they to be married?
You don't really, ma'am, believe my sister's engaged to Mr. Willoughby. I always thought you were only joking.
Oh, for shame, Miss Eleanor. How can you talk so? We all know they were madly in love with each other from the first moment they met. Because you are so sly about it personally, you think nobody else has any sense. But I assure you that all of society knows of it, from here to Devonshire and back again. I tell everybody of it myself.
Indeed, ma'am, you are mistaken. And you are doing a very unkind thing in spreading the report.
Yes, yes, you are a very subtle and clever creature, Miss Eleanor. Mum's the word until the banns are read, eh? I am off to visit my Charlotte, but I have asked Susan to lay out a nice breakfast for you two to stuff yourselves. Ta-da!
My dear madam, I gather that something in my behavior last night did not meet with your approval, although I am at a loss as to how I offended you. Allow me to be plain. I am sorry if you ever mistook my friendship for something more, but you must acknowledge that anything of that nature is and has been impossible, as my affections have long been engaged with another young lady, John Willoughby.
Eleanor, what shall I do? What shall I do?
Marianne, please, try to remain calm.
How could I be calm?
What good does it do to become hysterical?
Leave me if it upsets you so much.
Do not indulge in this display.
Just leave me. Hate me, forget me, but do not ask me not to feel.
Marianne, it could have been worse. Your engagement could have gone on longer before he ended it.
What engagement?
You weren't engaged? But Marianne, you wrote to him.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
How do you do, my dear? Poor thing, she looks very bad. And no wonder. It is but too true. He is to be married very soon. Mrs. Taylor told me of it downstairs, and I almost sank on the spot. Well, said I, if this is true, he has used a young lady of my acquaintance abominably ill, and I wish with all my soul his wife may plague his heart out. But he is not the only man in the world worth having, Miss Marianne. Soon you will be beating them back with a stout stick. Yes, have your little cry out. Luckily, the Perrys and Sandersons will be coming tonight, and that will amuse them.
I am sure my sister will not leave her room today.
I cannot believe that a man should use a pretty girl so ill. But when there is plenty of money on one side and none on the other.
The lady then is very rich.
£50,000, my dear. The young Miss Grey. A stylish girl, they say, but not handsome. £50,000! And it won't come before it's wanted, for they say he is all to pieces. Well, 'tis a true saying about an ill wind, for it will be all the better for Colonel Brandon. How he'll chuckle at this news. They'll be married by midsummer. I shall spirit him up as soon as I can. Maybe he'll come tonight. One shoulder of mutton drives another down, you know.
All she wants is gossip. She only likes me because I supply her with it.
Marianne,
I do not want to talk.
I believe you then, if you will promise to rest.
I recollected that I had some fine old Constantia wine in the house, so I poured a glass of it for your sister. My poor husband was very fond of it whenever he had a touch of his gout.
How good you are, ma'am.
Colonel Brandon, miss.
I'm afraid Mrs. Jennings is away from home, Colonel.
And your sister?
Mary Ann is unwell.
Perhaps than what I heard this morning. There may be more truth in it than I thought possible.
What did you hear?
It concerned a certain gentleman.
You mean Mr. Willoughby's sudden engagement to Miss Grey? Have you also heard that Miss Grey has £50,000?
How is your sister?
Her sufferings have been very severe.
Miss Dashwood, I may be able to offer some comfort. No, not comfort, but I may be able to bring some clarity about Mr. Willoughby that I can relate to you.
Please, go on.
You may find me a very awkward narrator.
Please.
In my youth, I knew a lady who very much resembled your sister Mary Ann, both in person and in temperament. I loved her. She loved me in return. But Eliza had no fortune, and I was a young man with no occupation and no independence. I was under my father's power. He forbade the match, of course. A marriage of that kind was impossible. He said, unthinkable. And though I protested violently, I'm ashamed to say he won out his point at the last. Threatened with disinheritance and disownment, I faltered. Eliza was sent away. At 17, I also was shipped off to my regiment in the East Indies, and there lost contact with her entirely. A man came along and treated her kindly for a while, then another, then another. I returned to England a grown man, independent, determined to find her. When I finally did, she was dying in the poorhouse, her infant by her side. You may have heard rumors about my ward, Miss Jane Williams. She was Eliza's daughter, whom I swore to look after as my own. That was 15 years ago. Last February, Jane suddenly disappeared from her boarding school. For months, I could not find her. Finally, I received a letter from her on that night I disappeared from Barton so suddenly. In it, she did not name the man who had seduced her. His luck, or I would have done him violence at the table, even as he basked in your sister's smiles.
Mr. Willoughby?
He left her in a situation of the utmost distress. No home, no help, no friends, ignorant of his whereabouts. She is 15. Now she is with child.
This is beyond everything.
When I came to you last week, I thought all had been settled between your sister and Mr. Willoughby. I did not know how to stop the marriage without heaping scandal upon her and my poor Jane.
Who knows what his designs on Mary Ann were?
I promise you, Miss Dashwood, if I did not from my heart believe that somehow this might lessen Miss Mary Ann's burdens, I would never have troubled you with this information. I am sure I keep you from your sister.
Mary Ann, before I write to Mama, I have something I need to tell you.
I suppose you heard about Mr. Willoughby's most expeditious nuptials?
I heard his creditors breathe much easier.
I heard Miss Grey wore orange blossoms at her wedding. Orange blossoms, can you imagine?
They say the young younger Miss Dashwood is broken-hearted and very ill. They had been corresponding, you know. Oh, yes, she wrote to him openly.
Oh, very forward of her.
No one to keep her in check.
The father is dead, you know.
What can you expect?
And I heard that she went out riding with him. Alone.
I am not surprised.
All the Dashwood girls run quite wild.
And no money at all to speak of.
What did you expect?
Poor girl.
Silly girl.
Very forward. Very foolish.
What a waste.
Nice.
So you see that we never really knew Willoughby at all. Marianne.
I would sooner think myself deceived by all the world than by Willoughby.
He has practiced nothing but deceit from beginning to end.
I cannot explain his behavior towards that poor girl, but whatever his sins, I know that he loved me. He loves me. That much is true.
Did he tell you that he loved you?
Yes. No. Never absolutely. It does not matter.
Of course it does. He is the worst kind of villain.
No, he isn't. Not at heart, Eleanor. You say that we never knew him, but I did. I knew him as I know myself. If he is wicked, then perhaps so am I. He and I are the same.
You are not being reasonable.
You do not understand.
Perhaps I don't. Marianne, how could you have written to him?
I felt myself to be as solemnly engaged to him as if the strictest legal covenant had bound us.
Obviously, he did not feel the same.
He did, Eleanor! I may have been cruelly used, but not by Willoughby.
Who but Willoughby?
I do not know.
Well, whoever may have been your enemy, let them be cheated of their triumph by seeing you rise above these circumstances.
I care not who knows that I am wretched. It is easy for those who have no sorrow to talk of calmness and exertion.
Do you think that I have no sorrow, Marianne? Can you believe me capable of being at ease when I see you in a state?
Forgive me. I know that you feel for me, and I'm very sorry to make you unhappy. But mine is a misery which nothing can ever do away. I want to go home.
Dear sisters, so delightful to see you in town. Fanny and I wanted to visit you sooner, of course, but we were far too busy visiting and being visited.
Visit?
Pardon me.
Whatever is the matter with Marianne? She looks very unwell.
She has had a nervous complaint.
Oh, I'm sorry for that. At her time of life, anything with an illness destroys the bloom forever.
Too pale. Too thin. Too pale. Too thin.
She's not that thin.
Fanny used to always say that Marianne would marry far better than you did, but the way she looks now, I can't see her marrying to more than 500 or 600 a year. Oh, you'll excuse me twittering on about marriage like an old dowager, but you see, we have been talking of nothing else in our household. It is finally time, you know, for Edward to settle.
Is Mr. Ferris to be married?
Well, it is not battened down entirely yet, but his mother is determined to grant him his independence if he would agree to marry the Honourable Miss Morton.
Lord Morton's daughter. She comes with £30,000.
£30,000? Oh! And what does Mr. Ferris think of the arrangement?
I do not know if his mother has told him of it yet, but he is sure to be delighted. It is an excellent match. But that's all to come. In the meantime, we wanted to invite you to a little dinner party. You simply must come. Fanny is wild to see you.
A party!
A party! Party, party,
our particular friends.
How do you happen to be in this company?
Well, I could ask the same of you. I confess, I'm amazed to see you, for you told me, you know, that you would not be coming to town at all. And here you are.
Why are you here?
Why, we two and your sister-in-law are the fastest of friends. Yes! Isn't that funny? Last week, we were in the sweetest little milliner's shop on Bradley Street and fell to talking with a terribly elegant lady waiting there and chatting about a boy who was being quite a monkey with the hat. I thought the milliner should faint. And Lucy has such a way with children. And one thing led to another, and it turned out the elegant lady was Mrs. John Dashwood, and we have visited with her almost every day since then. And she invited us to the party. And look! Here we are! Isn't that funny?
I see you have discovered each other. What a small world that you're all such friends already. Come, ladies, let me introduce you.
Miss Dashwood, pray for me, for I'm about to meet the person that is to become my mother.
Our host, Mrs. Ferris. Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Ferris says that the Miss Steeles are exceedingly pretty.
Miss Dashwood. Robert Ferris. You reside in Devonshire, I'm told, in a cottage?
We do.
And for my own part, I'm excessively fond of a cottage. There is always so much elegance in a cottage. If I had any money to spare, I should build a cottage and have all my friends visit me in my cottage. I advise everybody I see to build a cottage. My intimate friend, Lord Cortland, of the Lancashire Cortlands, came to me the other day and laid before me 3 different architectural schemes. Which one should I build, Robbie, said he. My dear Cortland, said I, throwing them all directly into the fire, do not build any of these deplorable shacks, but by all means, build a cottage. A cottage, man! A cottage, a cottage, a cottage! And that was the end of that.
Indeed.
And you, Miss Steve, do you live in a cottage?
I do not.
More's the pity.
That is Edward's brother. They are very unlike. Oh, Mrs. Dashwood! I cannot thank you enough for your invitation to dine tonight. Anne and I are quite overwhelmed by your generosity. I only hope that we do not intrude. My dear Miss Lucy, how could a charming creature such as you ever intrude? Indeed, Mother. Mother says how unusual it is nowadays to encounter young ladies who are as modest and respectful as leisurely Miss Steeles. I assure you, my dear, young women of your sort are always welcome here.
Mrs. Ferris, you are too kind. I could just stay here forever. Oh. Your home is so lovely. These sketches on the wall, so well executed. Did you draw them, Mrs. Dashwood?
Oh, no, those were done by Eleanor.
Do you know, we should have Miss Morton paint us something. She does paint most delightfully.
Beautifully indeed, but she does everything well.
Who is Miss Morton? Why are you talking about Miss Morton? Eleanor made these. Don't mind them. Please, don't let them make you unhappy.
Shall we go in for dinner?
Oh, my dearest, dearest friend, can you believe it?
What exactly?
Oh, did you not see Mrs. Ferris's way of treating me yesterday? So exceedingly affable, so kind from the moment I was introduced. I really think she took a special fancy to me. Were you not quite struck with it?
She was certainly very civil to you.
Did you see nothing but civility?
Well, if his family knew of your engagement, then nothing could be more promising than their treatment of you. But as that is not the case...
Why would they pretend to like me if they did not? Mrs. Ferris's affability itself. And so is your sister-in-law. And I think it will all work out splendidly and all my fears are for nothing.
I suppose time will tell.
Why did you never mention, Miss Dashwood, how exceedingly charming your sister-in-law is? She is generosity itself. She wrote Anne and I a little note this morning and invited us both to stay with her for a while. Isn't that very delightful? Are you ill, Miss Dashwood? You seem rather low.
I never was in better health.
Truly? Oh, you do not look it. I'm so glad his mother loves me already. I would have given up all hope if she had treated me in a forbidding sort of way and made me feel as if I were unwelcome. But when she does dislike people, I notice the most unshakable and violent.
Mr. Edward Ferris, miss.
Mr. Ferris.
Miss Dashwood. Miss Steele.
Please, do be seated.
Thank you, Miss Dashwood. I came to inquire after your mother.
She is very well. Thank you.
Excellent. And young Miss Margaret, your sister.
Very well. Very well. Thank you.
Edward, oh, I heard you announced.
Miss Marianne, how do you do?
Oh, I am very unwell. But do not think of that. Eleanor is well, you see, and surely that is all that matters.
Does not London not suit you?
Not at all. I expected to find much pleasure here, but the sight of you is the only comfort it has afforded thus far. We spent such a terrible, wretched day at Harley Street yesterday, Edward. I have much to tell you about it, which cannot be said at the moment. But why weren't you there?
I'm afraid I was engaged elsewhere.
Engaged elsewhere when such friends were to be met?
Perhaps, Miss Marianne, you believe young men don't keep any engagements at all.
Not so, indeed. I am sure that Edward must have had something very important to do to keep him from us. Did you have some pressing previous obligation, Edward? See, I knew it. What else could have kept you away? Edward really has the most active conscience, you know, and it would only have disappointed us for fear of failing another. Indeed, he is the most fearful of failing expectations or of causing pain to others of anybody I have ever met. And he always tries to do the right thing, whether it makes him happy or not. Edward, it is so, and I will say it.
Please do excuse me. I've only come a moment. I have an appointment to see a horse. Goodbye. I may buy the horse, if it is a good horse.
Going so soon again, Edward. This must not be.
I'm afraid I must also be leaving. Mr. Ferris, if you'd be so kind as to escort me as far as the park.
Why, yes. Delighted. Miss Marianne? Miss Dashwood?
What could have brought her here? Could she not see that we wanted her gone? How teasing to Edward.
Why so? We are all his friends, and he has known Lucy the longest. I'm sure he was very happy to see her.
You know, Eleanor, I cannot bear when you say things that you know are not true.
Miss Dashwood! Miss Marianne! Have you heard the news? At your sister's house! A scandal! A real scandal!
I do not know what is taking Lucy so long in her toilette this morning. She must fix a ribbon in her hair too, I suppose, after seeing mine.
Cette ribbon looks marvelous on you, my dear. Très jolie. Very pretty.
Oh! Now you're going to laugh at me too. Well, why shouldn't I wear pink ribbons? Pink is the doctor's favorite color, true, but that doesn't mean I wear them just to please him.
You young ladies in all your bows, it is also diverting.
Oh, law.
Well, you must not keep every heart for yourself, Miss Anne. You must leave some suitors for dear Miss Lucy.
Oh, Lucy gets more than enough attention, ma'am.
Pray tell.
Well, Lucy has a beau herself, though not a soul knows of it but me. I've a vast deal I could say to you on that account, were I so free.
Now, Miss Anne, you know you and Miss Lucy are family to me, and I'm afraid we do not permit secrets in this family. So I will ask you again, Madame, who is the lucky gentleman, and where is his lodging?
You know, I mustn't tell, ma'am. My, if that isn't the new spotted muslin you're wearing.
No, I will not be put off so easily.
Well, you are so fond of Lucy. I suppose it will be no difficulty. But you mustn't tell her I told you. She's engaged, ma'am. Anna.
Engaged?
To.
Myself, I had no notion of people's making such a to-do about money and greatness. Miss Marianne, are you in?
I think my sister wants rest. Please, let me attend to her. months. Lucy told it to me herself and swore me to secrecy before I knew what I was promising.
How have you borne it?
What else was there to do?
For 4 months? And yet you do love him.
Yes. But I do not love only him, and I was glad to spare my loved ones from my unhappiness.
How could Edward be engaged to that creature?
People make mistakes, Marianne. Edward was very young when he met Lucy, and confined as he was by his mother and his upbringing, I'm sure that she was very refreshing. She is lively and can make herself agreeable when she wishes, and if, when he grew older, perhaps he began to see something of her true nature, I'm sure he was too honorable to break off the engagement. Edward, as we have always said, has the most active conscience.
But his behavior towards you.
I must acquit Edward of all essential misconduct.
Eleanor.
He never promised me anything, Marianne. It is not his fault that we got carried away by our own conjectures.
I'm sure that he feels something for you.
Even if that is true, there is nothing to be done about it. Edward will marry Lucy, and I truly wish him very happy.
If your way of thinking is so practical, I'm not surprised you are calm.
I understand. You do not suppose that I have ever felt much. For 4 months, Marianne, I have known of Edward's engagement. For 4 months, I have had to listen to Lucy's hopes and exultations again and again. For 4 months, I have never been able to confide in anyone. I am to be divided from Edward forever. Nothing has ever proved him unworthy, and I think now that perhaps he does feel something, as you say. In short, I have suffered all of the punishments of extreme attachment without enjoying any of its advantages. If you think me capable of ever feeling anything, Marianne, surely you can imagine that I have felt this loss very deeply. My current composure is the result of my constant and painful exertion to maintain control over myself. I have done my duty, but believe me, I have been very unhappy.
Eleanor, I do not know what to say.
Promise me something, Marianne.
Anything.
Promise never to speak of the matter with the least appearance of bitterness. Speak civilly and discreetly about it to anyone who may inquire. Yes, even Edward and Lucy.
But,
please.
yes. Yes, I promise.
You have heard, I suppose, of the very shocking discovery which took place under our roof yesterday afternoon.
Shocking. Appalling.
Absurd.
Fanny says she shall never think well of anybody ever again after being so very deceived. I even wish, said poor Fanny, that we had asked your sisters to stay instead of the Steeles.
Why, thank you.
Generous.
Most generous.
We called for Edward, but I am sorry to relate what happened. You see, his mother had determined to grant him his independence if he would simply give up the girl and marry Miss Morton. Indeed, that she would lay upon him the Norfolk estate, which brings in a good 1,000 a year. But, if he chose to marry Miss Steele, she would disown him entirely, and indeed, if he tried to find any profession at all, she would do everything in her power to prevent him from advancing in it.
Gracious God!
Well may you exclaim, Marianne, at Mrs. Ferris's generosity. Edward said very little, but what he did say was unfeeling indeed to his poor mother and sister, who strove with all their might to help him see the error of his ways. But he refused to give up the engagement. He will stick to it, though it ruins him.
Then he has acted like an honest man. I beg your pardon, Mr. Dashwood, but I have some concern in the business. for Miss Lucy Steele is my relation.
I did not mean to speak disrespectfully of any connection of yours, madam. But in the present case, you know, the match is impossible.
Well, sir, then how did it end?
What is to happen?
His mother cast him off.
Was he ruined entirely?
I am sorry to say it ended in a most unhappy rupture. Edward is forever dismissed from Mrs. Ferris's presence and has been disinherited. In a very natural kind of spirit, Mrs. Ferris has elected to give the inheritance all to Robert immediately.
Thus ends Mr. Edward Ferris, the great, untrappable, rich bachelor.
How does he propose to marry anyone now that he's penniless?
Impossible.
Mr. Robert Ferris is a rich man.
Oh, a very rich man.
And very unmarried.
It is a grave situation indeed. Oh, I see the natural looks of anxiety upon your faces. Not to worry. There is no material danger to Fanny's health, though she suffers severely, the angel.
This town gets worse every year, my dear. Bad behavior all around. Thank heavens we'll be back in Barton soon. We will stop only to visit my daughter Charlotte in Cleveland, and then we'll be home again, quick as you please.
Cleveland? No, I cannot go to Cleveland.
Oh, because Mr. Willoughby has property in the county. Indeed, they are almost neighbors. I think one can see his home from a hill on Charlotte's estate. Oh, I am sorry, but you will never see him, my dear. I have told Charlotte all about his wicked treatment of you, and her dear Mr. Palmer would shoot him like a pheasant on sight. You will be very safe, I assure you.
Ma'am, thank you. We are very happy to go with you. It is an excellent plan.
Eleanor, you cannot expect me to go.
Marianne, please, we will only be there a few days, and we will remain in the house the entire time. I promise you, there is no chance that you will see him. We may even ask Colonel Brandon to escort us back home from there. Please, it is the quickest, most eligible manner in which to return. And you know we are both eager to be gone.
I would be honored to escort you when you wish to leave the Palmers. Miss Dashwood, there is another matter I must speak to you about. I've heard of the injustice your friend Mr. Ferris has suffered, and I wondered if I might be of some use.
How so?
You say Mr. Ferris intends to enter the church. The living at Delaford is vacant, and mine to appoint. I wonder if you would tell him I would name him as rector if he should find it to his acceptance. I only wish it were more valuable, but it is enough to marry upon.
That is very generous of you, Colonel, but wouldn't you rather offer him the position yourself?
Oh, I do not know him well, Miss Dashwood. I've only met him 2 or 3 times. I should think as you are his old friend, he would be more inclined to hear the happy news from you.
Oh.
Miss Dashwood, I received a note from Mrs. Jennings that you wished to speak with me.
Yes. Hello. Yes. I have something of consequence to inform you of. I'm charged with the most agreeable office. Our dear friend, Colonel Brandon, has desired me to say that, understanding you mean to take orders, he has great pleasure in offering you the living of Delaford. Allow me to congratulate you and join in his wish that it may allow you to establish all of your views of domesticity.
Colonel Brandon?
Yes. Colonel Brandon has heard of your troubles and wishes to help in any way that he can, as do we all.
Colonel Brandon give me a living.
The unkindness of your family has made you astonished to find kindness anywhere.
No. I'm sure I owe this to you.
You are very much mistaken. I have had no hand in it. Not that I wouldn't have a hand in it, if I'd had a hand to give in it.
Miss Dashwood, when I became engaged to Miss Steele, I was very young and quite stupid, really. Colonel Brandon lodges, I think, on St. James Street.
I believe so.
I must hurry away then to thank you.
May I give you my unceasing good wishes for your happiness?
Mine yours. Miss Dashwood.
And here we are. Miss Dashwood, Miss Marianne, Colonel, I'd like to introduce you to Charlotte, the prettiest of my daughters. Oh, Charlotte, you've grown so plump.
So stiff from the carriage, Eleanor, I may take a little walk around the grounds.
It is so late. It looks as though it may rain. Wait only until tomorrow and I will walk with you.
It is not going to rain. I must walk, or I will go mad, Eleanor. I will return soon.
At least take your shawl.
Very foolish.
What will wait?
No money.
It's not that. It's
Willoughby!
a bilious complaint.
No, a fever, they say, and very serious.
Her father died of the same.
That stalk was never strong.
Dying of a broken heart.
Such a rapid decay.
Well, they say the doctor's been there 4 times in 2 days, and the Palmers have removed themselves, lest it be contagious.
Ollie has from cook that the doctor is very grave and grows graver still.
Well, that's the sad end of the whole affair, I suppose. And her so young.
Poor Miss Dashwood.
Oh, Miss Dashwood.
Poor Miss Dashwood.
Poor Miss Dashwood.
Eleanor? Is Mama coming?
Not yet. We will send for her, but it may take some time for her to get here.
But she must not go by London. I shall never see her if she goes by London.
Marianne?
Eleanor, please. I'm hot. Too hot.
Doctor, she is not herself.
They would leave her.
I shall hold the bowl.
Miss Dashwood. Prepare che senza mani. Cannot have your feelings. Miss Dashwood. It might be best if your mother was sent for.
Is she going to die?
I must dispatch a messenger to Barton for my mother. She must come as soon as possible.
With your leave, I will deliver the message myself. It will be fast, and I will return with her directly.
That is not necessary.
Miss Dashwood, give me something to do. I will return with your mother. Look for us before 10 o'clock.
Marianne? Can you hear me? You cannot do this to me. I will not stand for it. You are being very ridiculous. I don't mean it. I am sorry. I promise, if you get better, Marianne, I will never chide you again. Please, dear. Please don't leave me. Please, you cannot leave me alone. Please.
Miss Dashwood.
Your business cannot be with me, sir. The servants must have gone to tell you that Mr. Palmer is not at home.
And they told me that Mr. Palmer and his relations were the devil and would not have turned me from the door. How was your sister?
You have no right to ask. Mr. Willoughby,
Forgive me, I've been drinking.
what do you want?
I want to make things right if I can. I want something like forgiveness for Marianne.
Marianne, you should not be so familiar.
Is she in as much danger as they say? Is she dying? It is my fault. I know. Please, let me see her.
No.
I did not plan any of this. I never wanted to hurt anybody.
I must ask you to
When I
leave.
first met your sister, all I wanted was an idle dalliance, something to do in the country.
Mr.
Willoughby! You misunderstand me. I thought it was a harmless flirtation, and I thought Marianne knew it could not lead to anything. Surely you must know it is impossible for me to seriously pursue a girl with no station, no fortune, and, forgive me, but no notable family. But, quite against my intentions, the part I played became my most pressing reality. I found myself terribly in love.
Did you?
I was going to ask her to marry me.
And what precisely stopped you? You must think me very foolish indeed.
My luck went bad. Mrs. Smith had somehow been informed of a regrettable connection from my past.
I know your history, Mr. Willoughby.
I can guess who might have told you. Ask yourself if he is truly impartial. I was wrong, yes, I ought never to have touched Jane, but do not think that because I was a libertine that she was a saint.
Any weakness on her part is no excuse.
I assure you, Miss Dashwood, I have paid richly for my sins. Mrs. Smith has pronounced me no gentleman, and I have been summarily disinherited. I had many debts. Should I have gone to prison, I had no practical choice but to give up Marianne.
And when you left Marianne that day, did you tell her that you would soon return?
I do not know what I told her. I was out of my head. I had to resolve to forget her entirely.
Well, you did an excellent job. Ignored her letters, shunned her in public, exposed her to the worst kind of gossip and intrigue. Is that all evidence of the great love that you have borne her?
Everything was already settled between Miss Grey and me.
Then you have made your choice, and you will be held to it. Goodbye.
I must see her.
Seeing you will endanger her recovery.
Recovery?
Her fever broke last night. She is no longer in material danger.
Miss Dashwood, you have been very cruel.
As have you.
You needn't punish me anymore, Miss Dashwood. I am unhappy enough, I assure you. My marriage alone is just reward for my folly.
You should not talk of your wife in that way.
I shouldn't, should I? But yet, if ever on thine eyelids stood the tear that pity had engendered, drop one here. This man was happy once, but conscience had her part, and writes a doomsday sentence upon his heart. Hope. The poem, Cowper.
You really should leave.
I will before I make you hate me entirely. Miss Dashwood, will you someday repeat to Marianne what I have been telling you? Assure her that my heart was never unfaithful to her. I know Marianne is most probably lost to me forever, but if someday, by some blessed chance, I was somehow free again,
Mr. Willoughby.
Yes. Well, goodbye, Miss Dashwood. God bless you.
Willoughby. I do pity you.
Colonel Brandon, I cannot thank you enough. You shall never know what it meant to me.
Colonel Brandon, if it's no inconvenience, would you stay? My voice is so very weak and tired from the stress of yesterday's journey, and we must make Marianne's confinement an interesting one. Perhaps you could read to her. He loves her, of course.
To judge from his spirits, he does not think there is much hope.
He feels that Marianne's affections and opinions are too deeply rooted for any change. Even supposing her heart free again, he does not think that he could ever attach her.
Did you know, Colonel, that Shakespeare writes in a rhythm which matches precisely the beats of the human heart? He had been drinking.
Yes, but I think he meant it all. Marianne, may I ask?
Yes.
Do you perceive now that marriage to Willoughby would have condemned you to continual unhappiness? Can you imagine being bound forever to someone so endlessly selfish?
You think him selfish?
The whole of his behavior from beginning to the end of the affair has been based on selfishness. His own pleasure is, in every particular, his ruling principle.
I suppose my happiness was never his object.
At present, he regrets marrying for money. And why does he regret it? Because it has not made him perfectly happy. But had he married you, he would have always been poor, suffering all of poverty's attendant evils. He's already proven that he is capable of treating you with great cruelty and indifference when it suits his purposes. In those circumstances, who knows how you might have fared?
Eleanor, I agree with you. Are you surprised?
A little.
I am glad that you told me. And I am relieved to hear that he was not always playing a part, not always deceiving me. Makes me feel not quite such a fool. I think I may even understand how he justified his actions entirely.
Do you still acquit him?
No. I see everything as you desire me to, I assure you. He was very wrong in what he did, and I never could have been happy with him after knowing how he treated that unfortunate girl. But I also feel sorry for him. Is that very foolish?
No. No, not at all.
I'm grateful that we can speak about it. I do not regret anything, I assure you. Except my own behavior.
Do you compare your behavior to his?
No. I compare it with what it ought to have been. Compare it with yours.
Well, you are a goose.
Come, we must turn back.
Are you tired?
No, the Colonel has promised to read The Tempest with me this evening, and I don't wish to be late. He's very good.
I suppose you heard, ma'am, that Mr. Ferris is married. Patsy! Miss Marianne's ill!
No, I'm fine.
Thomas, water, please. Thomas, who told you that Mr. Ferris was married?
I saw his new bride, as it were. Miss Steele. She and Mr. Ferris were stopping in a chaise outside the New London Inn. She said hello and sends her best to the family, especially Miss Eleanor. I made free to wish her joy.
But she told you she was married, Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. She smiled, said she was Mrs. Ferris now.
Was Mr. Ferris with her?
Didn't see him, ma'am. I'm sure he's well enough. She seemed vastly contented.
Eleanor.
Margaret, run and go and pick us some pretty flowers, please.
Oh, yes.
Mama, Colonel Brandon is at the gate.
Oh, for tea. Darling, will you please go and run and meet him? It's not Colonel Brandon. It's Edward.
What? Edward? Oh, good God, it is Edward.
I will remain calm. I will be mistress of myself.
Sit!
Edward, I do wish you joy. And how is Mrs. Ferris at present?
Rather well, I think, yes.
Is Mrs. Ferris at Longstaple?
No, my mother is in town.
I meant to inquire after Mrs. Edward Ferris.
Perhaps you mean Mrs. Robert Ferris.
Mrs. Robert Ferris.
Mrs. Robert Ferris?
Perhaps you do not know. You may not have heard that my brother is lately married to Miss Lucy Steele.
Your brother?
Yes. I had a letter from Miss Steele, now Mrs. Robert Ferris. They struck up an acquaintance. My brother is very popular now, you see, because of his inheritance, and she set her cap at him, as I believe they say, and they were married last week. Miss Dashwood, you must allow me to tell you how ardently I am sensible of the impropriety. From the moment I first saw you. Oh, Eleanor, if I loved you any less, I might be able to talk about it more.
Oh, Mr. Ferris.
I was a very foolish, idle, ignorant young man. I was not allowed to choose a profession, and I had nothing to do but fancy myself in love.
But your behavior to me...
I was simple enough to think that because my faith was promised to another, there could be no danger in my being with you. And then, when I knew I was in love, I thought, the danger is only my own. I am doing no injury to anybody but myself.
Mr. Ferris.
Won't you forgive me, darling? Dearest Eleanor, please. Won't you be mine?
Edward.